Hello YouTube community, this is Can Enrich. It's been a while since I've done a YouTube, since my last one, How to Be a Good Person. Today I thought I would speak about spirituality. What is spirituality? Can it bring meaning to your life? Can it enrich your life? Can it transform? I was wondering because all these years I'm kind of going along, and of course I know the religious traditions. I was not reared into a religious family background, but I noticed as a young kid I did observe people who seemed to be devout, and they did pray. And so I said, well, sometimes when the going gets tough, when you're young, you do pray. But I put it aside. My parents thought that religion was more something to discipline people, rather than they had no metaphysical understanding of what the God was. So I never really took religion seriously. And then when I did, I just noticed that there were so many wars, the Crusades, and even today there's these fundamentalists, and then there's Islamic fundamentalists. And so I can see where many people use religion for their political purposes for ill will even, because it seems to me quite a contrast and contradiction to the good teachings found in most religions. So let me just kind of give you an idea of why I'm thinking about spirituality. I was wondering if you're an atheist or if you are agnostic, you could go through life being very ethical, being very moral, and you could be very successful and very happy. There's no problem with that. And when you die, one could serenade, c'est la vie. That's all there is to life, which probably in their mind is all there is. And Einstein would probably say, yeah, we don't have to have a feeble ego to kind of want to live on. He never thought that was important. So yeah, we could just believe in nothing. But then I thought about it. There seems to me something unusual when we have a hankering for something beyond ourselves. And it dawned on me that just my consciousness, my thinking, my speaking with you and you're listening to me, it's pretty awesome, and it's pretty mysterious. And so that kind of gave me a sense that, maybe I'll revisit what spirituality might mean to me and share it with you. And if it resonates, then hopefully you can also go on your own path. But for my path, I thought I might look at spirituality as it relates to 4 things. Number 1, spirituality and the existence of God. Now, most people want to prove the existence of God, or they expect some kind of scientific proof, and I'm one of them. The rational intellectual types like to think in terms of what can be proven. There's other faithful types who seem not to care, who seem to have a personal relation to God based on faith. But in my sense, I wanted, if there's a theistic religion here, if there's a God, for example, then how do you prove it? So, is it like scientific proof? And I've asked myself this over the years 1,000 times. But I've realized that, just to ask, does God exist, is presupposing a physical fact. It's almost like, is he a corporal being? By that I mean, for example, in the Exodus, God tells Moses, I'm right here with you. I'm your personal God. Take your people out of slavery. Or, in the Bible, it also says that God made us in his image. So we kind of assume that he's a corporal being. But if you dig a little deeper in many of the strains of Judaism, you also find that Yahweh can't be really known. Or you can experience him, you can know of him by his words, and but you're not going to see him. And if you do, sometimes you'll die. And in the Catholic religion, in the encyclopedia, they say that God is infinite. And if our human minds are finite, then we really, really can't know God either. So it is based on a faith. But I thought, seems to me the proofs of God go nowhere. And the reason is because it's pretty mysterious. And if he's not a fact, then certainly we're looking at proof the wrong way. We're looking for proof via scientific. So Einstein thought that, well, God can't be anything like a anthropomorphic being like us or a super us. He's got to be a super being. And another scholar, Karen Armstrong, believes that the more you delve into the proof of God, all you find is that it's a divine mystery. It's a divine mystery. So I said, well, okay. Whether he does exist or not, I'll have to accept that it's mysterious. But I like the idea of divinity, so I'll take it that there's a possibility of a God. And does it matter? Well, if you're Nietzsche, God died, and it seems that many religions had this slave morality. But yet, I think that's just one way of looking at it. If you look at the Bible, there are so many great stories and parables that speak to the human condition. And it's the wisdom literature that informs us today even. The idea of empathy and compassion, and in the Judaism, there's a sense of welfare for your fellow man. So I think if we want to be inspired by ethical principles greater than ourselves, then that's sort of what the role of God is. But I do want to say that what turned me off a lot to religion was this idea of organized religions. So we know that all religions, whether Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, they have this universal good. They cultivate and they want to enhance your human kindheartedness. But organized religions can be holier than thou, and they can get into dogmatic perspectives, and which color how they treat others who are non-religious, or even people of a different denomination. So fundamentalist, you have moralism, you have empty rituals, and so they eviscerate some of the reasons for religion. In other words, if you go with rituals, memorizing scriptures, and monetary donations, but don't live by the scriptures, then you're forfeiting your right to be called religious. So I'm kind of wary of institutional religions. There seems to be a routinization, and many pastors and many fathers do not push the idea of living it, living the good that you're taught. So the Dalai Lama has a little spiel on this, and he does say that material offerings, singing praises, praying, the best offering actually is to live a life in an ethically disciplined way based on tolerance and patience. If you pray but do not live according to that prayer, it is not much benefit. So what we're just saying is study the religion, but live by the principles. Third, so I thought, well, let's look further into the wisdom literature and see what we find, because spirituality can come about when we have more wisdom. So, as I said, all religions tend to want us to do good, but I wanted to say many religions too also believe this, that if you do good, you will be rewarded, whether in this life or in the afterlife. Now, this idea of being rewarded is called divine justice. In the Western Christian and Judeo-Christian religions, it's called the Theology of Just. So, if we are good, we should reap the benefits. If we are bad or evil, we should be punished. But as we all know, in many instances, the good do not prosper. There are great leaders who are assassinated. There's tsunamis, and there's violence that takes the lives of innocent people. So let me just kind of highlight what I found in the Old Testament. Now, the book of Job is pretty famous. I think a lot of people know that this was a very pious Job. He was very faithful to God, and he was very successful. But one day, Satan made a bet with God, and Satan said, I think Job is pious only because he's successful. If he wasn't, I don't think he'd even really believe in you the way he does. So God says, okay, let's see if he is faithful. And so Satan is authorized to take away all his wealth. Besides that, he takes away all his sons and daughters. He's left with sores all over his body, so unbearable suffering. And so Job is in a lot of pain. Job is beginning to get very angry. And so his friends try to console him by saying, Job, you did something wrong. I mean, we know that God is all powerful, he's all knowing, and he therefore believes that you did something wrong. And you should tell us what you did wrong. Job said, no. I did nothing. And I demand an answer. And I demand that God listen to me. And I believe, I can find out that he made the mistake, not me. So he is adamant. And then, of course, in the book of Job, God does show up. But God doesn't answer his question. God speaks about how great God is. How dare you as a human come question me? And so God talks about how he created the universe, how he runs it, and how there's so many things going on. And why would this human speak to me or question me? So Job, all of a sudden, in the presence of God, is like a near-death experience. He's overwhelmed, and he has an epiphany that, yes, I'm just a measly human, so I repent and go to dust. So the question is, why didn't God answer him? Well, Job's question is, since I'm so pious, since I'm so good, why am I being punished? Which is really Satan's point, is Satan's question. And so God is not going to give in to Satan's question. So God, however, noticed that after all this, Job is still pious, even though his wife is very irate and say, curse God and be gone. But Job remains pious, so actually God wins the bet. And this shows that one should maybe believe in God for the sake of its own goodness, not for what you're going to receive as a reward. So it's called disinterested love. And if faith can be based on disinterested love, then that is in fact a higher sense of commitment and faith. And so God finally rewards Job with a new family and new wealth. Well, this is just one sense of religion trying to ask the question of what is the reason for what is the reason for goodness, even if bad things happen to us. And the fourth thing that I think might be good is spirituality can help us with mindfulness. we can cultivate a mindfulness. We can cultivate mindfulness by becoming more calm, and more equanimity can develop, where we can establish a more tolerant attitude toward others. Our right attitude toward others can be more accommodating, and we can actually deal with situations where we can have a sense of balance between who we are and who other people are. And finally, I thought spirituality is something by way of what about spirituality in relation to society? Well, I found out that since 2015, there's still 70% of Americans who believe in a God. Many of them, 30%, do not, roughly speaking. Of course, many do not go to church. Many are spiritual and not religious. But it's really something that to behold, that spirituality is still around, even after all the changes that have occurred in our world. I mean, as we become much more a technological advanced civilization, so many secular ideas. But if somehow spirituality still has a role, then I think it should be nurtured. It could be. And I believe that, for example, there's a charter of compassion started by the religious scholar Karen Armstrong I mentioned earlier, that wishes to push compassion, empathy, kindness, and charity. Maybe this part of our spirituality can be nurtured by organizations like this. So, I just want to conclude by saying that spirituality is something I'm looking at. I'm still grappling with the implications of it. But I think it has given me a much better insight into why we are humans, how we can be a better human being, and how there's a little bit of divinity in all of us. So, and it doesn't matter if we believe in God or not, but it might be that it's better that we do, so that just in case we can then go on to explore the next phase of our mysterious life. Well, thanks for listening, and I wish to see you again on another topic about our changing civilization.